Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are. I am Dhosea of NerdTube. With me is Gaz, and we are here today, unfortunately, to talk about the passing of arguably the greatest hardcore wrestler of all time, Terry Funk, at 79. That man lived a full life, and he had many, many, many great wars. I don't know where you want to start, boss man. I'm thinking, maybe start with like Terry Funk versus Ric Flair for the old school fans.
Yes,
Um,
so I'm not too sure where he was trained or when his first kind of break became. But the first time that kind of people, as far as I know, kind of looked at him was like I think it's like mid-70s when he worked with Ric Flair, as you say, like in the old NWA.
yep.
Because I think he was like one of the first United States champions. I think he might have, I don't know how the race was the first. I think he might have been the third or fourth.
Yeah, he's up there. Like I think top five. He was one of the first few people to win it.
Yeah. So like, I mean, and the thing is that his style when he first started wasn't what it became. His style when it first started was very traditional. I mean, he still kind of like the wild, crazy, like southerner that he kind of did that the entire career. You know, he had this thing where he had a stare which would scare the bejesus out of people. Like people said, like as soon as he would come along, he would just look at people, and people would just run from him.
Hmm.
It's like he had that kind of aura about him. Like the thing is, you look at him versus Flair. Flair was the actual heel, even though you think it probably the other way around, because here you have the good-looking, flashy Flair versus against the like kind of like scruffy, dowdy kind of like Funk.
Yep.
But it worked.
Yeah, it worked. And Ric Flair versus Terry Funk was hardcore wrestling before hardcore wrestling was officially a thing. I suggest anybody go back and watch their matches from the 70s and 80s. I mean, the I Quit match, I think around like 1989, it's one of the greatest matches of all time that you can see. And then he had other matches with like arguably his greatest opponent, Mick Foley. You can go back and watch any of those death matches, and those things are brutal. I got to warn you now. If you're going to watch those death matches, they are not for the weak at heart. For real, they're not.
Yeah, because I mean, I mean, I might be incorrect on this. So, like, Schroeder would probably be better for this sort of thing. But I'm thinking that he had a run in WWE in the 80s. I say it was the 70s or
Yes,
80s, where he was
yeah,
like,
it was the 80s.
I don't think he won like a belt or anything like that. But I think he was like a good kind of like mid-level talent that would kind of like elevate other talent around him. Because I think the Intercontinental Championship got started just as he left. I think Pat
Yeah,
Patterson won it just as I think, is at the cusp of him leaving for NWA.
yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Because I don't think Terry Funk. I know he won like one tag team title in like the late '90s, but it was one of
Yeah,
those like one day kind of reigns, and
yeah,
that was it. But yeah, Terry Funk basically, he went on to, you know, work in Japan and in WCW, and then his most successful time, in my opinion, came in ECW. He was the guy that basically made ECW when he won the world
yeah,
title at their first pay per view.
yeah. Because I think when he started in ECW, it was in his 50s. I want to say
Yep.
he was in his 50s when he like first started there. Because he was kind of like the wildly famous veteran.
Hmm.
Because people, well, yeah, everyone respected him for a start. Because he's Terry Buddy Funk. So you hear Shane Douglas, you hear like Tommy Dreamer and all these people like kind of Mick Foley all saying nice things about him
Yeah.
because he kind of was the leader, but also he'd put over young talent, but also
Hmm.
like young talent would help him. Because because the thing with Terry Funk is he was a fundamentally sound wrestler.
Hmm.
Like it's like because you look at his move sets, it was like the spinning toe hold, it was moonsaults. It was
Pile
his finish,
drivers.
the Texas Power Driver.
Yep.
I mean, and the third most famous thing that he's probably most famous for is the fact that he would hit you with a left hand.
Yeah.
There's no bullshit about this left hand. He would literally hit you with it.
Yeah.
Like,
Funk in Japan, if you can get a chance to go back and watch any of his matches in Japan, they tell you that stuff's stiff. That stuff is stiff. When he hits you for real. You were going to be feeling it for a few days.
yeah, because like, there was a shoot. interview with Road Dogg and Billy Gunn
Yep.
from like the mid 2000s where they were talking about it. They said that he would hit you with a left hand that would not. Well, I'll use the words that you used, that would knock your dick stiff.
Yep.
And he would literally hit you as hard as you want, and everyone else says like he would hit you with a left hand that would, really crash your dome. And as somebody who's been hit in wrestling, that stuff isn't fun, I can tell you.
No.
And the thing is that he kind of perfected the art of hardcore wrestling, because like people always say, hardcore wrestling's trash, is this like that, but if you see it be done by someone like him or a Mick Foley, or like I'm trying to think of guys who do it real well now. There are people who do it real well in this day and age, but they're few and far between, the people who kind of see what he did but kind of want to emulate it but don't have the talent or the wherewithal to do what he did, which was kind of know where the line was. I mean, I actually put something on Facebook today which was talking about a very famous match he had with Sabu in ECW.
Yep, the barbed wire match.
Bloody hell, that was! I mean, I've actually seen that match. I mean, that was like brutal. Even today, it's still brutal.
Mm-hmm. Like
they killed each
later,
other.
Yeah, they damn near killed each other for a shoot. It was one of those, and Sabu got his arm all messed up in that match. I remember that.
Yeah, like he literally, I think for like a good year, had like bandages all over his arm because he got himself tangled up in the barbed wire.
Yeah, almost tore his veins up in his arm, and yeah, that's something you just can't do. But yeah, Terry Funk, and he goes on to the WWF after. Here's a funny thing about Terry Funk. Terry Funk is up there with Ric Flair as the king of retirement matches, because both those guys have retired more times than anybody in the business, I believe. I know Terry Funk is definitely, I think, the top guy to retire more times than anybody else in the entire world. Like, he talked about retiring, and he would always come back. He goes to ECW, wins their world title, makes ECW what it is. He was the reason they got mainstream. And then he goes to the WWF as Chainsaw Charlie, as a tribute to a friend, a former NFL football player. And he and Cactus Jack win the tag titles in a dumpster match at WrestleMania 14.
Yeah, that was probably the dumbest run of his entire career, because it was, I can't remember, I think it was Fizz Russo who said that.
Came up with the idea.
Yeah, said that people won't recognize that it's Terry Funk because he's not wrestled here in I think it was like at that time it was like 30 years. That's 20 years what it was. And then as soon as he came out with the flaming, I think he had like a stocking over his face, but was more, and people were just shouting, Terry. It's like people don't forget.
Yeah,
I mean,
they don't
when
forget.
when you sell at the Garden and you're that over, people don't forget.
Yeah, and in that match, he, if you go back and watch it, he took a bump where he messed his back and his kidneys up, and you could see the bruise. And then the very next night, he was in part of one of the segments and matches that made the Attitude Era, where the Outlaws joined DX. What happened was the tag titles got held up because they put them in the wrong dumpster. And Cactus and Terry had to put the tag titles on the line. The Outlaws win because Triple H and X-Pac come down and beat the shit out of them with chairs. And then the Outlaws join DX, and then Terry Funk goes on to team with another underrated guy, Too Cold Scorpio. And it's a shame that they never really went anywhere, because Too Cold Scorpio could work.
Yeah,
just as well.
Yeah, I mean, because the guy was still wrestling into his 60s and his 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the word badass is, I think, thrown around too liberally, especially these days. But he was a badass.
Yeah.
I mean, he did ungodly things to himself at that age. Like, he would throw himself up moonsaults. And I can tell you, as somebody who's wrestled at an older age, that stuff hurts, ladies and gentlemen. And trust me, when he kind of, his body was probably callous to it at that time, but kind of it still tracks up on you.
Yeah, and people think those canvases don't hurt. They hurt.
Oh,
I've taken a fall on those things. They hurt. They hurt.
I can tell you for a fact. I mean, you learn to protect yourself, but even
it still hurts. Yeah,
it still hurts.
It still hurts. And then Terry Funk, he went to, he wrestled in the WWE for a while, retired, and then I think he went to WCW. And
is he? I'm just going to look it up while you just keep on talking. Sorry.
Yeah, he went to WCW and became the commissioner and won the hardcore title there a couple times. I don't really know for sure what else he did there in WCW, because I wasn't really watching at the time. But Terry Funk was always one of my favorite guys to watch. He had hard hitting matches with Sting and Vader, and just so many other guys. The matches that he had with Mick Foley in Japan, as I said. Terry Funk was one of those dudes that was always selfless too. He never politicked for anything. He was always like, I want to make this guy. I want to make that guy. I want to work with this guy. And he had one of the greatest runs in the history of the business, as far as
Yeah,
I'm concerned.
yeah, because he. I mean, the other thing about him that we're not mentioning is his movie career, because
Hmm.
he was in a few movies. He was in Roadhouse. He was in Over the Top, the Sylvester Stallone favorite arm wrestling movie,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. He was in. Sorry, I'm looking at his
Credits.
his Wikipedia page at the moment.
Yeah.
He was in like Swamp Thing in '91. He was in Thunder in Paradise, the flaming Hulk Hogan movie.
Yep.
Series. Trying to think what else he was in. Yeah, Beyond the Mat, he was in that. Friday Night Lights, yeah, he was in that. The Ringer, bloody hell. Over the yeah, but
Yeah.
he was in quite a few stuff. I mean, and the thing is with him is that when you think of a wrestler, you think of Terry Funk, because he was, he was eon spanning in a
Yep.
great way. Um, I think that maybe the greatest shame is that he didn't really have a great WWE run. I know he had the title run, but he didn't have the great run that he should have had
No.
with
The
them.
last thing I remember seeing, and it was years ago, was One Night Stand 2006 when he and Tommy
Oh,
Dreamer teamed up to take on Mick Foley and Edge in one of the most violent matches of all time.
that was an
Definitely.
amazing match.
Yeah, it was amazing. And Beulah
Uh,
McGillicuddy and Lita, respectively, too, were in that match.
How
They
old
turned
was
it
Terry
into.
Funk when that happened? He must be getting to his
He
late
was in his
50s.
60s. Yeah, he
Was
was
in
in
his
his
60s?
60s. Yep.
I think it was he? All right, bloody hell.
Yeah, he
Well,
was in his
much respect.
60s. Yeah.
Hats off to the guy.
For a guy to take, barbed wire shots and then go through a flaming table and do all the stuff that he did and stuff like that, like guys like Tommy Dreamer emulated him, Raven emulated him. I mean, there are so many guys that you could name that emulated Terry Funk because he had that kind of an impact on the business. And we're going to miss him. I know this is a short video. I'm sure we might say more Friday, but for now, all we could really say is thank you, Terry Funk, for the memories.
Yeah, and if I do wrestle, my first match, I'm going to do a step over to hold
Yep.
in reference to the man. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's a
All
promise
right.
you just heard me say that.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, I don't think there's anything else to add. All we can say is our condolences and thoughts go out to Terry Funk and his family and friends and fellow fans that are affected by all this. And take some time to go watch some Terry Funk promos and matches today in the man's honor. Rest in peace, Terry Funk. And